Hi everyone, welcome to our Claris FileMaker training course on how to build a custom CRM in 30 days. This training is designed primarily for beginners or those of you who need kind of a refresher with the Claris FileMaker platform. Over the course of 30 days, we're going to spend about an hour each day covering topics from the very basics of the Claris FileMaker platform in terms of the tools, the products, deployment, security, all those things you need to know about as you build a custom application. So keep in mind that towards the beginning of the training, the topics are more basic in nature. And as we get towards the end of the training, they're somewhat more advanced. I would say probably intermediate level topics. Now keep in mind this special part of this training is that while we're not only talking about the FileMaker platform, we're talking how you can rapidly customize an existing free CRM that you can download today. It's unlocked. So taking that CRM and customizing it to your organization's particular needs. Now, a couple important links to keep in mind. One is that if you need a copy of FM Starting Point, the free Unlock CRM, visit fmstartingpoint.com and press the button. And then our system will shoot you an email with the current links to that CRM. If you're looking for additional FileMaker training, visit fmtraining.tv and press the bundles button. And that will allow you to get more of this highly animated and somewhat energetic training material to help you through the learning process with the Claris FileMaker platform. Lastly, if you have questions about the FileMaker platform or you're looking for some additional help, maybe some one-on-one coaching help, feel free to email us at support@rcconsulting.com.
But today we're talking about adding modules. Basically, I need to add this and this into my database. Like I need to you're like, I need what's module today, Michael? Are we doing?
Today we're going to be duplicating the estimates layout and turning it into a purchase order layout.
What are we looking at?
All right, so the first thing that I wanted to show you all today is this website. It's a website blog that was written by Todd Geist. If you're unfamiliar with Todd Geist, he's one of the gurus of the FileMaker community, really talented man, and he's got a lot of really great information on FileMaker. So before we move forward, I just wanted to share this website because I'm going to be using a lot of his techniques. Like we mentioned earlier, the idea for today is we're going to be taking the estimates module and starting point, and we're going to be repurposing that for a purchase order module. This is something that many of my clients have asked for. As Margaret said earlier, she's had other people write support about this. This is a very popular thing that we do for people. And it's a good skill for a FileMaker developer to have, is knowing how and when to reuse code. Because if you're writing everything from scratch all the time, it's just going to take you a lot more time than it should. So that's what we're working on today. And I'm going to be using this checklist, portions of it, as I move forward. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what I'm going to do before we go into the actual coding and development. So the first thing that they call for in this checklist when you're moving code, this checklist was written with moving information from one file to a separate file. That's not what we're doing today. We're only going to be working in one file, and it's going to be FileMaker Starting Point standard. And some of these things we can skip. For instance, we don't need to worry about the custom functions because the custom functions are already there. Yeah. So obviously we don't have to move any of that. Mm-hmm. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to build our tables. And the tables that we're going to build, it's going to be a purchase order table and a purchase order line items table. So we're going to be adding 2 extra tables. And then we're going to concentrate on the relationship graph here. Make sure the relationships are set. Make sure the names are set well with proper naming conventions. And then we're going to go into our fields. And here it says we want to adjust the fields, but since we don't have any layouts, we don't have any fields to adjust. So we're actually going to step over to 5 before we go to 4. So we're going to be doing things a little out of order today. We're going to start with our layouts. We're going to build some layouts. And by build, I really just mean duplicate and move. And then we're going to adjust the fields on the layout. Then from there, we'll worry about our scripts and any scripts that we need to update. There are a couple of scripts that we will need to update. And then everything else, we don't really need to worry about because we're all in one file. It's a single file, and we're not going to be moving value lists or themes or security, any of that stuff. So that's kind of the basic overview of what we're going to be doing. And yeah, do we have any questions so far, Margaret?
Say, do we have any questions, anyone? Are we all on board with what's happening today? I think that we're probably good.
Wonderful.
I will interrupt you if anyone flings anything at me.
Very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this over on the side just so that we can see it. I'll probably cover it up sometimes, but I just want to have it on the screen so it's available just in case. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we need to build our tables. So I'm going to go into my database manager. For those of you with keyboard shortcuts, that's Shift Command D, or you can come up here to File, Manage, Database. All right, and so we need to build our tables. And so instead of starting a new table, I'm going to duplicate the estimates table and the estimates line items tables. So to do that, we're going to grab these two tables.
Ask real quick, why are we choosing estimates?
We're choosing estimates because it's pretty close to a purchase order already. They have similar fields already built for us with calculations. So it's going to save us a lot of time to repurpose fields that are already built than to start from scratch and have to create all these fields. It's a lot easier to delete things that we don't need than to build everything that we do.
Got it. Cool. That makes sense. You're good.
All right. Very good. So I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to select both of those layouts, the estimates line items and the estimates. I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to hit paste. And so now you see we have duplicated those two layouts. So you can see 29 fields, 138, 138. So to make things easy for myself, I'm just going to pull these down here to the bottom so that they're easy for me to find. And I'm going to rename these tables. Okay, so this first one is going to be the estimates table. That's going to be our purchase order table. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that. I'm going to hit PO underscore purchase underscore orders. Ooh, I spelled that wrong. Purchase orders. And just to make sure that I type that right, I'm just going to paste it in. I actually have a little cheat sheet next to me because some of these names, I want to make sure they're very precise. So if you see me pasting some stuff, just know that I'm not a super fast typer. I'm just copying and pasting.
You're good. We got naming conventions to adhere to.
So in order to change that, we just typed in the name. We're going to hit change here. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing with the line item. So I'm just going to copy that from my cheat sheet. And I'm going to select line items, select this. I'm going to paste. And I'm going to say change. Okay. And so now we have a purchase orders table and a purchase orders line items table. And if we look at those tables, let's start with the purchase order. So I'm going to go to fields. Let's look at the fields inside of this table. A lot of these fields, they're going to say estimate. And so to keep things from being too confusing, we're going to change those fields from estimate to purchase orders. So we're just going to go down here. This is the first one. This is going to be our purchase order. Instead of estimate, purchase order. Okay. So I'm just going to copy that because I'm going to be putting this in a couple other places. So we're going to say change estimate year. That's not an estimate year anymore. It is a purchase order year. Change that. Active estimate. We're going to change that. Estimate. We're going to change that. And basically, we're just substituting anything that says estimate. And if I miss any, please do let me know. I'm only human and mistakes do get made from time to time. Okay. And a lot of these we're not going to be using for this demo, but this is how I would do it if we were going to be using this for a production level FileMaker file that we were working on. Okay, so moving
sense.
down, we're looking good, looking good.
I don't see any more estimates so far, so you are
there's
golden.
one place that I know we need to change this. Right here, the primary key. We can't forget to change that primary key. So there's two things that we're going to do here. We're going to say ID purchase order for our primary key. We're going to change that. And then here, it's set up as an auto enter serial primary key. And so we don't want this to be EST anymore. We want this to be PO for purchase order. So we're going to just go ahead and say OK. And so now when we make a new record, instead of saying EST with a number, it's going to say PO with a number. I'm pretty sure that that's something that Richard went over in previous videos. So you should all be following me pretty well there. Right, so that should be good to go.
Mark's got one. Filter ID estimate apparently is something.
Filter, very good.
There we go. We missed it. Thank you.
Nice one. Thank you very much. Okay, and that should be good. Again, a lot of these fields we're not going to be using for this demo, but I'm showing you how I would be doing things. Okay, so now we need to go into the purchase order line items and do the same thing. Okay, so looking here, because these are no longer estimates. So right here, filter ID purchase order line item, change that. And this is the primary key. It's EST. We're going to change that to just PO. Change that. And again, we need to come in here and change that from being estimate line item to PO line item. I'm just putting POL. I'll hit OK. And ID estimate. We're going to say ID purchase order. And that should be good to go. So now I'm just going to say OK, because I want to commit my changes. I don't want to do all this work and accidentally hit cancel and undo everything that I've done.
That would be not fun.
No, and it does happen from time to time. All right, so I'm going to pull that back up. All of our changes in our fields and tables have been committed, and we are good to move forward. So I'm going to go into my relationships. This is where things kind of start to get a little tricky. I'm going to do my best to make them as not confusing as possible. Okay, so let's look at our estimates module. We've got TOA estimates right here, and this is kind of where we're going to be pulling data from. So what do we need? We don't need everything, but we need some of this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move over the things that I think that we're going to need. I think that we might want to link accounts. I think we might want to link contacts. I think we might want to link estimates, because let's remember, these aren't estimates anymore. These are purchase orders. So we're going to be going from purchase order to purchase order. So this will be addressed in a moment. You'll see why I'm grabbing that. These, we could take them, but for the sake of this particular demo, I'm going to leave them here. Let's see. We don't really need an invoice, because an estimate is not an invoice, and a purchase order is not an invoice. A purchase order is not an estimate. So we don't really need to link those two together. If you want to, you can, but for now, I'm going to leave them out. All right. And so we're definitely going to want line items for our estimate. For our purchase order. And we're also going to want preferences. We might want to link this to a project or a staff. And you probably don't really need products, because I would imagine if you're sending out a purchase order, you're going to be grabbing other people's products instead of the products that you already have in the database. But just in case, I'm going to go ahead and move that one over as well. And so all of these fields, all these table occurrences that I've moved over, we're going to copy all of them. So I'm going to hold my shift button and I'm going to select the ones that I've moved over. All right. And I'm going to hold the option key. And I'm going to drag this over here to copy all these table occurrences. All right. So I'll move those over there. So let's start to build our table occurrence group. I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold my Option key and drag, make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to rename this to, oh, let's call it T50. T50 purchase orders. And I'm going to just grab this, purchase orders. All right, so we're going to rename that and paste that in. We'll say OK. And we need to find our base table. When you make a new table, they get moved up to the top here. So now we have our purchase orders and our purchase order line items. So I'm going to grab those and I'm going to move these kind of over to where we are working. I'm just going to set these both in here for now. This is the purchase order here, and this is the purchase order line items. So I'm going to move that down because we're going to make another table occurrence group for our line items. So again, Option drag, and I'm going to change this to T51 purchase order line items. All right, we'll say OK. Let's rename these tables because we want to have a number in the front. This is good for anchor buoy and for legibility later. We're going to do the same thing for purchase order line items. We're going to call this 51 purchase order line items. All righty. So now we have our table occurrence groups, and we're going to move these guys up here into the T50 purchase order module. Okay. Oh, deselect that so I can move these a little bit closer together. Something kind of like so. All right. Do we have any questions so far? No. All right, moving forward. Okay. So for the sake of time, I'm going to show you how I would rename one of these, but then I'm going to do some copying and pasting so we can kind of move forward on this. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to rename this module. And so instead of estimates, T08 estimates, we're going to paste in purchase order. Actually, I don't think I have that pasted in. Yeah. Purchase order. And we're going to change this to, instead of T08A, we're going to call it T50A. Okay. And I'm going to just copy this from somewhere else so that this is exact. You're going to see later when I'm going to copy some fields and I have to make sure that the names are exact. So we've got our T50A purchase order to accounts by ID account. And I believe the naming convention is something that RC talked about in previous meetings, but just in case you need a little refresher, the lowercase is the context of where we're at. So we're in purchase orders and we're looking into accounts based on ID account. Okay. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to open this up and I'm just going to make a connection here. I'm going to double click here because I need to change that connection. And we're going ID account to ID account. Okay. So we'll change that and we'll say OK. And so that is our first connection. And we're going to have to do that with all of these. So again, just to make things a little bit quicker, I'm just going to do some copying and pasting.
While you do some copy and pasting, I'm going to do a quick thing that this kind of came up in the Discord chat. People are kind of confused about what POs are. Purchase orders can be things that you receive or things that your company issues. We're mostly doing purchase orders because it's a common request. Not so much. It's not really so much about, oh, we're doing purchase orders. It's more about like explaining, I need a new module. How do I add a new module to my already pre-existing database? This is kind of what mostly the discussion is about. We picked purchase orders because it's not in FMSP, and it is a common request to add FMSP. What a purchase order is kind of depends on the company. It can be things that your company issues, and it can be things that your company gets. That makes sense. Did I say that correctly, Michael?
Yes. Purchase order is more, It's more for somebody to send to a company saying like, these are the things I need to buy from you. Whereas an invoice is somebody trying to buy something from your company.
Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Okay.
So,
but
yeah, as a general guest, we're doing purchase orders because it's a common request, but we're not really so much focusing on the purchase order aspect. I can speak English. We are more just focusing on the transferring modules and how to do that. Okay. So with that being said, Michael's still copying, pasting, but I'll just let him continue that. Sorry.
I missed this last one, so I'm going to do this one manually. So it's going to be T50O, purchase orders, products based on flag available. Okay. All right. And so now we need to link all these together. So this is going to be purchase order to contact based on ID contact. So I'm just going to make a connection, double click. I'm going to change it in here, ID contact here to ID contact here. Change that and we'll say okay. All right. And then this is one that I said earlier. If you double click here on this table occurrence, you'll see we're in estimates. We're not looking at estimates. We're looking at purchase orders now. So I'm going to copy this because as soon as I change this to purchase orders, it is going to delete this line here. So I copy that first and I go all the way to the bottom. I go purchase order, see it disappears. I just paste that back in and say, okay. And we're looking at purchase order to purchase order. So we're going to go ID purchase order here to ID purchase order. And we're good to go. All right. Here are our line items. Again, we need to change this from estimate line items to purchase order line items so that we're in the right table. I'm going to paste that in. And we're going to make the connection. Double click here. And this connection is going to be ID purchase order to ID purchase order. All right.
And are we all following along, by the way, real quick? This is kind of like the tricky part. Relationships are always like the part that makes people like, oh, so are we all good so far? Zoom-wise, Discord-wise? I'm not seeing much commentary, so I assume we are. You can keep going, Michael.
Okay.
I'll let you know if any questions pop up.
Wonderful. So this is our preferences. We're going ID constant to ID constant. ID constant to ID constant. And the way that I'm finding these so fast is I'm just selecting inside of these field options and I'm just typing. So I say like here, if I click over here and I type in ID underscore C, it goes to ID constant. So that's something good to know. I'll say okay. We've got our projects and we're going ID project, ID PRO, project to ID PRO, ID project to ID project. We can hit change, say okay. And we might want to connect some staff here. So we're going to go ID staff to ID staff. And now you can see why this is so much easier to duplicate the estimates module than to try to build this from scratch, because we'd have to making all these fields and naming them all, making sure that they're indexed and all the things that come with making fields and connecting them. So this is just a lot faster than if we were trying to do this from scratch. Okay, ID product to ID product. This one's ID product pop over to ID product. Okay. All right. You would probably want to sequence these A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. But just since we only have 1 hour, like I said, I'm pulling these from another file. So they are out of sequence. But at this step, I will go back and I would change all of the names so that they were consistent and sequenced correctly. Oops, sorry about that. All right. And so one more time, I'm going to say OK. We saved our changes in the relationship manager. Okay. So now we've got our graph, we've got our tables, and we're swapping 4 and 5. So now we need to build some layouts. And the idea here is we want to have a data entry layout, we want to have a list view layout, and we want to have a report. And for this demo, I'm going to do 2 reports if there's time. One report for a single purchase order and one report for a list of purchase orders. Okay. So I'm going to go to my manage layouts here. And so I can see all my layouts. I'm going to search for estimates. And I'm going to copy this one because I chose the basic learning level. In FileMaker starting point, you have 3 different learning levels: advanced, intermediate, and beginner. I've chosen beginner for this. Okay, so we're going to copy C. I'm going to say duplicate. And we want to duplicate this estimate list view. And we want to duplicate this single page report. And we want to duplicate the list report. Okay. And so here, if I go and I search for copy, we can see all of the layouts that I just duplicated. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename these layouts.
Yes, we can't have them swinging around being estimates anymore.
No, these are no longer estimates. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say edit. And again, I'm just going to paste in a name that I had from a previous file. I chose the 500 group, or excuse me, 5,000 group. So I've renamed it, and then I need to show records from T50 purchase orders. And we are no longer in the context of estimates. We're now in purchase orders. As you can see, that one disappeared because I changed the name. So we're going to do the same thing here. This is the list view. I'm going to call this 5001 purchase orders list view. And I'm going to change that to T50. And I'm going to say, OK. And we're going to do that same thing here. This is going to be L5002. And we're just going to paste that in, change this to T50. And select OK. And last, we have our list report. Okay, and I'm going to say edit, paste that in there, and go to T50. Alrighty, and so now if I go to 500, we can see our purchase order layouts right here. So what I'm going to do is I want to put them into a folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select them all. I'm going to close this. As you can see, they're still selected. I'm just going to grab them and I'm going to drag it all the way to the bottom just to make things easier for myself. So bear with me while the computer catches up.
Yep. No, it's a lot of stuff in FMSP.
I'll just put them right here for now. And I'm going to make a new folder. And that's going to be 5,000. And we are looking at purchase orders. Okay, I'll select OK. And I'm going to move all of these into 5,000. Right there. And I can move these into 5,000 as well. These tables were automatically created when I built the purchase order table and the purchase order line items table. When you create a new table, you're always going to get one of these in your layouts. Whether you use them or not, that's up to you. So I want to put these here, and I'm just going to drag these down to the bottom because I don't actually use them in the demo, but we like to keep things clean and organized because it's a lot better to do it now than to go back and try to do it later. Trust me, you're not going to want to go back and do it later. You will not go back and do it later. So let's just do it now.
Yep.
All right. So that's good to go. And what we need to do now before we do anything else is we need to take off these script triggers, because the way that it's set up now is that estimates data entry layout and the estimates print layout both have script triggers linked to them, and they are linked to the estimates layout. And so if we go to the estimates layout, or excuse me, if we go to the purchase order layout with the wrong script trigger on it, it's going to take us to the estimates layout. It's here, I'll show you. Watch this. If I hit open here, I say open, and check that out. We're on L600. We're not in L5000, right?
Oh.
Let's try that. Try that again. So if I go here, I'll even pop this open here so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to open up my script debugger, and I'm going to just move this over here for a moment. We're on L5000. I'm going to hit open. And that's a script it calls estimates data entry layout load. It checks your device mode, and then it takes you to this global variable, which is set as the L600 estimates data entry layout. So we're just going to go ahead and stop that. And I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to remove those script triggers. So I can do that right here. I just go to edit, script triggers, and I take that out. And
I didn't realize the script trigger would interfere even from the manage layout window.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. As soon as you open that layout, it's going to run. So that is good. All right. So we'll go ahead and say okay.
We got a quick question.
Yeah.
Any problem with deleting the unused layouts?
These are, if you're referring to these two layouts, no, there is no issue deleting those layouts. If you delete the layouts, you're not deleting the table itself. You're just deleting the layout that is attached to that particular table. So if I were to delete these, I'm actually just going to do it because I don't actually use them. And if we go back to our database manager, you can see those two are still there, as well as all of the relationships that we built earlier this afternoon. Okay, so yes, you can absolutely delete those layouts. I would be very, very careful deleting layouts because there is no undo. If you hit delete and then you say okay, you do not undo, and you better hope that you had a backup of the file. All right, so we've got our layouts built. Do we have any other questions, Margaret?
No, I think we're good. I think you are free to continue onward. What's the next step?
Okay, wonderful. So we've built our layouts. Now we need to go back to number 4, and we have to adjust our fields. I don't know if you saw that. Well, actually, first, let's do a little quality of life stuff. I want to be able to navigate to these layouts. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come to our home page here, and I'm going to say edit layout, and I'm just going to copy this one here, and I'll make this one just a little bit smaller like that. I'm going to take the image off, and same thing with this one. I'm going to take the image off just so I can put them right next to each other. And this is no longer estimates. This is going to be purchase orders. And typically we have scripting in FileMaker starting point that would choose your learning layout level and decide which layout you're actually going to go to. We're going to keep things easy here. And I'm just going to do a single step, go to layout, hit enter. And the layout that we're going to go to is this 5,000 purchase order data entry. Okay. And I'm going to move this guy over here, kind of try to make him look pretty. And these two, I'm going to resize to the same size so they look a little bit nicer, and kind of try to line them up with these arrange and align buttons over here. If you haven't used these, I highly recommend spending some time here because they will make your layout life a lot better. All right, so now we have this button that takes us to purchase orders. And if I click on the, I just hit the products.
It always happens to me when like the status thing above goes away. I'm like,
Kinda
oh, just
moved-
click the button and it prompts
It
like,
moved
oh,
away.
yeah.
All right, and so now, as you can see, we're on L5000C. Okay, but
There's a lot of screaming about unrelated tables.
there's a lot of screaming about unrelated tables. And the reason that is because we duplicated this layout from the estimates. And so all of those fields on the layout, they're all referencing the estimates and not the purchase orders. And so what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to go in and we're going to have to manually change these from T08 to T50. And so what you can do is you can just press C and it'll take you all the way up to the top and you hit enter.
I did not know that. Oh my God, I had to
Yes.
do this so many times. I have to scroll.
No more scrolling.
No, I didn't
No more scrolling for you.
know that.
What was Calvin's video called? Is keep your grubby hands off the keyboard? Is that the name?
Yes, what he did is keyboard shortcuts video. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So we're gonna have to go through, we're gonna have to change all of these manually. It's gonna take some time. I'm not gonna do that because I don't have that kind of time.
We don't have that kind of time, unfortunately.
So I'm just gonna say okay, and we're gonna imagine that all of those have been changed. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to change this portal because this portal is looking at the line items. It's not looking at, it's looking at the estimates line items and not the purchase order line items. We need to be looking at the purchase order line items. It's a good thing we already made that relationship. So we'll double click on that and we're going to go here and T50K purchase order line items by purchase order. How easy was that?
That was exceptionally easy.
Exceptionally easy. So one thing that we need to do before we move forward is notice these three fields. We've got a quantity, a unit cost, and a unit price. They've all got script triggers on them. You see that? This little icon here shows that there's a script trigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these and drag them off the side of the screen because we're going to look at that script later and I want easy access to that script. We don't want to look at it now. We're going to look at it later.
Okay.
I'm going to take these off and say script triggers. Actually, I don't think you can select all of them and do that.
That's a bummer.
Oh, actually,
wait, what?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Surprises every day.
Surprise, surprise. Okay, so that's kind of where we want to be. We're looking at these purchase orders based on line items. We've changed the name of our portal. We've changed the name of a couple of our fields. Now you can see these do not have the unrelated table notification. I'm going to make a new record so that I can type something in. I can say, Richard Carlton, only spelled right. Fritchard. We're going to call it Fritchard Carlton. All right. So as you can see, we're adding the information in where we want to. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to fast forward us a little bit, and I'm going to copy some layout, some records, or I'm sorry, some fields from another table, so that we can skip forward on all of this. The first thing I'm going to do is, before you make big changes on any layout, what do you do? Margaret, what do you do?
The first thing to change in a layout?
When you're about to make a big change on a layout, what do you do? You
Copy
duplicate it. Yes,
Yep.
you copy it. Yes, exactly. So we're going to duplicate
Because
that.
there is no undo.
There is no
layout.
undo. Exactly. And so what I like to do.
David Angel screaming back up in the chat.
So I like to say deprecated here. And I like to put a little X. And I would probably put a date. And today's date is 6/24/2022. All right. So now we've got our duplicate, and we're going to continue working on the layout that we were on before. You make the duplicate as a backup. You don't do any edits to the backup. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete all of that. I don't want it. I don't need it. And I'm going to go to this other file that's a magic file that you can't see.
Yes, the magic file that we all have with all of our perfectly aligned. But no, we are speeding. We're not speeding, but hopefully like what's happening here makes sense, right? Like you would go through, you would manually change everything.
Exactly. You have to go in field by field, and it takes some time.
It takes forever, which is why we are just like Michael already pre-did this, which is why he's just copying it.
As you can see here, there is a field missing. And the reason why that field missing is in my field definitions, I missed that field when we were going through. So that is a date right here. Date estimate should be date purchase order. And we're going to change that. And come up to our fields here. And what do? We hit
C.
C. All right, luckily it was already on that one. Where is it?
Right, I can't draw right there. You were hovering over
date purchase order.
Yep,
there we
you're
go.
good.
All right. And so as you can see here, this one is a little bit different than the last one. I took out a few things that are a little bit unnecessary. If I were to bring over this, if I were to go to my fields here and go to estimates data entry and say open, we're just going to compare a little bit. As you can see, in this one, we have a unit cost, unit price. We don't really need the cost because all we want to know is the price. How much does it cost? How does all the math add up? How much is this going to cost when there are 3 or 4 of them? So we want the tax, we want the quantity, we want the price, the unit price, and we want the extended price. Okay. So real quickly, we're going to change this to ID purchase order. And I don't really need the account name, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And that didn't take, so I must have a spelling error somewhere in here.
Oh, what's the name of the purchase order ID?
Yeah, so let's go insert merge field. And we got ID underscore.
That says it's the current table for some reason.
50. There we go. Oh, it's because we're still in estimates. I almost started doing edits on the wrong page. So I'm going to close that because we don't need it anymore. I was just showing you what this used to look like and now what it looks like. So we've removed a couple of those fields. And these scripts, we want to take those scripts off because they got put back on. Okay. All right. And so we're going to say ID estimate is going to be insert merge field ID underscore purchase order. Okay. A lot of the stuff we probably don't need. So I'm just going to take this for now and we're going to pull that off to the side. Probably these we're not going to need. So I'm just pull those over to the side.
That was an add line.
Yes. Where I'm not doing the add line just for the sake of time.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, I just want to make sure. Cool.
Because technically we have 10 minutes left and I probably have another half hour left on this. So I'm going to try to,
yeah,
I'm going to try to breeze through this.
You're good.
Okay. So we've got that one. And then we need to do a couple things here. That's actually a great segue, this add line. So how do you add something to this? You know, I click on here, I'm trying to click on this stuff, nothing works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my database manager, go to my relationships, and I'm going to find the relationship for that portal. And that portal is going to be this one right here, purchase orders to purchase order line items. I'm going to double click on this. And there's this section, this little checkbox, right? Excuse me, right here. Allow creation of records in this table via this relationship. I'm going to turn that on. I'm sure that you've talked about this in other videos, but don't turn this one on. Delete records in the table. Do not turn that on. Do not turn that on.
It's
cascading deletes.
Yeah, that's bad juju. Do not touch it.
Bad juju. All right. So now if I come here and I select this, I can say, I want to buy a skateboard. All right, and I want to buy a cup of coffee. All right, and so now you can see I can add lines here. Okay, but if I add a price, let's say this skateboard is $50. This adds up, but none of the totals add up. So how do we get those totals adding up? And those are the scripts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here. We're going to look at this script. And we're going to say, we're going to just double click on it. I'm sorry, right click on it, go to script triggers, and it's 1029. So I'm going to cancel this, open up my script workspace. And we're looking
why
for
we name things. All you have to do is type in the number.
Exactly. So
We just added
1029.
that Monday was on the naming scheme. So yeah, please number them. Makes your life so much easier. Okay, so what are we doing?
All right, so now we have all these fields. This script runs whenever those numbers are changed, and it updates all of our calculations. And we have to change all of these. So you have to come in here. Well, first, we're going to make a copy. We're going to say duplicate. And I'm just going to grab this and drag it to the bottom just so it's easy for me to find. Okay, so this is now our script that we are trying to update. I want to make this a little bit bigger. And instead of estimate financial, purchase order, delete copy, and now we can change all of these. So what we have to do is we have to go in here for every single one of these and change them. So T50, purchase order. And that was going to be the subtotal cost. So you have to make sure that all of these are changed. I hope you guys brought a snack. So this is going to be TO8K. We're looking at the line items, extended costs. So I'm going to select that. And I'm looking at our purchase order line items. Extended cost. I'm going to search for that extended cost. And we'll say, okay. And again, some of these you won't need, like extended cost, you probably won't need that one. But since we are 7 minutes away from ending this, I'm just going to say all of these need to be changed. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go here to my other script space. And I'm going to just do a little magic here. I'm going to select this, select all, copy, select all, and delete, and paste. All right. And so now, as you can see, all of these are the correct field. That just saved us about 15 minutes probably. All right. So do I have any questions so far? Did I move too fast there?
We do have a quick question. I asking Lynn what he meant exactly. Lonnie had a fun comment. Find and replace would be handy. Yes, it would be. Doesn't exist in the product yet for script workspace, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, it would be
Lynn,
handy.
did you change the relationship on the fields in the portal, or did I miss that?
I did change the relationship, or I did not. You're right. I skipped over that, but that is something you would need to do in this portal here. You would need to do like you did for these guys and change this from being before it was T08K estimates. Now it is T50K purchase orders. So yes, that is a very good observation, and sorry for overlooking that one.
Yeah, no, I think it's just part. I think the fact you copied things over because we couldn't go through and manually change things. So.
Right, but typically you would not have a sample file that like I have, and so you'd have to go in and manually one at a time set that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to cancel on that, but all of these have been changed. And we need to add those script triggers back. So I'm going to actually, these ones are the same. So I'm going to go script triggers, and I'm going to just turn that off and say, okay. But now I'm going to select them again with the unit price and quantity. I'm going to right click, set script triggers. And that was on objects
save, I thought.
Save, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to go down to this here. I didn't rename that well enough. Right now it's 1029. I'm going to just say okay. And then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to rename that because we don't want scripts with the same name. What's going on? There we go. So we're going to call this, we'll just call it 20,000. If you have 20,000 scripts in your database, I'm sorry.
We're very sorry. We apologize.
All right. So let's go back here. And if you look at the script triggers, we're at 2000 now. It dynamically changed. When I changed the name of the script, it just did it automatically. So that's really awesome. FileMaker super smart. All right. And so if I did that correctly, now we should be seeing updates on these totals. If I say the price is now 100,
there we go.
If I want 2 of these, look at that. And so that's the basics of how you would add a purchase order to FileMaker starting point by taking the estimates and duplicating it. What I just did, probably if you started from scratch, it probably would have taken, I don't know, 5 to 10 hours. It would have taken a long time to build that. But as you see, I did it in 40, 50 minutes. We still haven't done the reporting side, but that's really easy. We're going to do that real fast, and you're going to see how awesome this looks. Do we have time for that, Margaret? Can we go?
We absolutely can. I have like a really quick thing to point out that something asked. Like inside of the portal, the fields inside of the portal have to be changed, but they're changed to the line items table occurrence.
Yes, exactly.
Clarify that.
Exactly. So all of the ones outside of the portal are getting changed to T50. If I double click on this, we're at T50, but then the inside the portal, we're changing it to this relationship here. I'm going to turn that off. T50K purchase orders line items. So if I double click on this, T50K purchase orders line items. Okay. Yeah. So yes, yeah, absolutely. We need to make sure that gets changed. And we're going to have some other things that we're going to have to change. For instance, these scripts to add a project, it's targeting, oh, actually, never mind. I did a command. I did a replace yesterday, and those are working. But typically, because I cheated. Okay, I cheated. I use the wolf pack. If not wolf pack, Wolf's Toolbox. If you're unfamiliar with Wolf's Toolbox, you got to go look at that thing, because I took all of these and I replaced them with T50. I targeted T08 estimates and I replaced it with T50 purchase orders, and it saved me a bunch of time. So if you haven't looked at that file or watched those videos, you got to go back and watch those videos, because they are fantastic and they're great developer tools that every developer should be using if you're serious about what you're doing here.
And then, yep, real quick, one last comment. So generally, hopefully people ask questions. Hopefully this makes sense. Mostly this is just time intensive. It's not terribly complicated.
No.
It's just renaming and then realigning a lot of things, with the relationships being kind of a tricky spot, but otherwise, so. Right.
It can be very, very tedious. Again, some of these buttons, you'll have to change the scripting on these buttons. This guy here, you probably have to change this one. I'm not going to do that here because, we're out of time. The chart, you're going to have to change the chart because the data is looking at, actually, no, because I did the find and replace, it says T50, but typically it would say T08 still. So you have to go through and you have to change all of these fields, all the scripts to get it into a spot where it is a purchase order module. Okay, so what do we do next? We change this here. We say the detail view is going to do nothing. The list view is going to take us to a different spot. I'm going to say single step. Instead of going to estimates, we are going to the beach. But all right. So we're going to here. We're going to the list view. Okay. And so I say, okay. So now we're dealing with our navigation. And if I go to list view here, it takes us to our purchase orders. You can see it right here, 501 purchase order, but these fields are all going to need to be changed. So you would say T50 or C, excuse me, make sure date estimate. Date estimate is going to be date purchase order. Okay. Bill to first name, because we can just use those fields as our billing name. And so we go here, hit C, enter, and bill to first name. You got to make sure that you're choosing the right fields. Otherwise, you might have some problems here. Change this to C, count, bill to first name. This is going to be bill to last name. And you're going to do that down the line. Let's see if I can kind of make this a little bit easier for us. I'm just going to take all of these here, copy that, and I'm going to delete all of this. Delete those. Go exit layout. There's a cool thing where if you copy something, you exit the layout and then you go back into the layout and hit paste. It puts everything right where you want it. That's a Nick Hunter trick. And this is 500C, wonderful. And we need to change this to the right table or the right layout. And we're at the beach again. And this is going to be at the bottom. We've got our data entry, okay. And we'll say exit layout. And now if I go back and forth, we're at 5001, 5000C. So back and forth, these are working. We will have to go through and change these. I'm not doing that today because it's just, we're out of time. But you will have to go and add purchase orders into these, this top navigation up here. I'm gonna go back to the home screen because I clicked into projects, go to purchase orders. And I'm going to open up the print view. Look at this print view. And this is the first one. Oh, look how ugly that looks. It looks so ugly, but we're going to quickly fix that. Okay. And so I'm going to go to edit layout. And typically I would have to go in here and I'd have to change each of these one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. It's going to take some time, but I'm a cheater and I'm going to try to make this a little bit easier for us. I say edit layout and I'm going to delete all of this. Copy, exit layout. Go back here, hit paste. And now you can see everything is T50L for the preferences, purchase orders up here. And if I exit, we can see we've got a pretty nice purchase order. So let's add a little information here. We're missing some bill to and ship to. So if we say bill to Michael, Van K, company, RCC, address 1234 South, Sputh. We're in Sputh Street now. City is Los Osos, California, and 12345. And if we go, we commit that record and we look here, we've got a little bit of bill to information. We could add ship to information. If you want to add your company details here, you would just go up into the preferences. So go back home, go to preferences, and you can add your company here. My super awesome company. All right, so I got my super awesome company, and that's 4321 North Street. And we're in Palo Alto, California, something like that. Ooh, that's a big zip. And US. Okay, so now if I look over here, you see we've got our super awesome company, and you can see you keep adding information, and this thing is going to look pretty nice. Okay, last thing I want to do is give us one more view. We've got our list report, and this is going to be a report of all the different purchase orders that we have. Okay, so again, unrelated table. We're gonna have to come in here and change this. We change this one to this is T08 estimates preference. We're gonna go up to C, and we're looking for preferences, ID constant, company logo. Hit OK. We're gonna do that over and over and over again. but to save us some time, I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to grab this. Say copy. Oh, I'll show you this. This is pretty neat. So this is my cheat sheet here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all this. And if I come back to my cheat sheet, if I just copy it here and then go here and I paste it, see, it goes off in the wrong spot. That's not where we want it. So I'm going to undo that, come back here, select all, copy. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go to exit layout first. You have to exit the layout. And then you go back into layout mode and paste, and it all goes exactly where you copied it from.
I did not know that was a trick. I'm learning tricks today.
That's one of the coolest things Nick Hunter has taught me. I mean, he's taught me a lot of great stuff, but that one in particular was just like, I love that trick.
Didn't know you could do that. Cool. That makes so many things much easier.
Yeah, I use that all the time.
With lighting things up.
And so now you can see we've got a super awesome company purchase order list. If I wanted to come over here, go back to my purchase orders, go here to purchase order and create a new purchase order. We're going to say new record. This one's going to be, say, I don't know. I want some tea this morning, and we're going to have, I'm feeling a little tired, so I'm going to say 10 of them at $2 a piece. I've got a $20 fee. I also want a donut with my tea. And you know what? I'm hungry. I'm going hard today. All right. And we'll say they're about $1.50 a piece. And we've got another purchase order here. And if I go to my list, we have, or let's see here. Is this the right? Oh, one thing I forgot to do. This is supposed to be a list of all of our purchase orders. So why do we only see one here? If I go back and forth, it's changing. You see it goes from 50 to 200, but I can only see one. I'm supposed to see them all. Let me tell you why that is wrong. It's because when I created this, when I duplicated this layout, it's supposed to be a list view. So I go edit, views, and look at that. I have all three of these selected. So I'm going to deselect form view and deselect table view, say okay. It's going to think for a minute. And now I have both of my my purchase orders. I can come here and just jam through a couple of them, and you can see I've got all of those purchase orders. And so that is your purchase order list. Okay. So the last thing that you would need to do is just script getting to these layouts. I think we are about out of time though. So we're going to forego that for the moment. But it's as simple as, go to layout, maybe search for the PO that you're looking for.
Yeah, no, I think so. Okay, so that was fantastic, Michael. Thank you so much. Keith said, great presentation, but I need the video to review it. That happens. It's totally understandable. It is a lot.
It was a lot. I do apologizing for moving so fast. I know I jumped around a lot, but I just wanted to make sure that we finished it in the time that we had. A 2-hour session probably would have been ideal. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't really have those.
Yeah.
So it's just the nature of the situation. This is, like I said, this is hopefully a fairly simple concept. It's just very time intensive to actually execute. Mm-hmm. Thank you from Mark. It was great. Yes, from Fernando. Dave Chen, thanks a lot. Excellent training. Chris Brown, very good. Thanks. So I think, Michael, for your very first solo session with us, this has been awesome.
I think we did all right.
No, I think we did great. Michael is an excellent and amazing coach. So if you happen to need FileMaker coaching and you would like Michael as your coach, I believe you're free, right? Do you have open slots?
I am open. Yes, please do write us and let me know. I would love to take you on as a client and maybe add a purchase order into your database.
Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the feedback. You all have a lovely, 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 lovely Friday.